The city of Ashbourne woke to something impossible. Not a disaster. Not an earthquake. Not a storm. Something far stranger. People had begun losing entire days of their lives. It wasn't ordinary forgetfulness. Birthdays vanished. Graduations disappeared. Wedding anniversaries became blank spaces. Parents stared at family photographs without recognizing the children standing beside them. And the strangest part, everyone believed it had always been that way. Everyone except Ethan Brooks. Ethan was a 29-year-old investigative journalist who worked for the Ashbourne Chronicle. Unlike most reporters who chased celebrity gossip or political scandals, Ethan searched for stories that refused to make sense. His apartment overlooked the old clock tower in the center of the city. Every morning, he drank black coffee while listening to the bells echo across the rooftops. That morning, something felt wrong. His phone buzzed. His younger sister, Lily. "Ethan," she whispered over the phone. "I think Mom is sick." Ethan grabbed his jacket immediately. What happened? She doesn't remember Dad's funeral. His heart skipped. Their father had died 5 years ago. How could someone forget a day like that? 20 minutes later, Ethan arrived at his mother's house. She smiled warmly as she opened the door. "Ethan, you're early." Inside, Lily looked terrified. "Ethan." She pulled him aside. "Ask her." He turned toward his mother. "Mom, do you remember Dad's funeral?" She frowned. "What funeral?" Silence. Ethan laughed nervously. "Very funny. I'm serious." His mother's expression never changed. "Your father died peacefully in the hospital. We buried him privately the next day." "No." Ethan shook his head. "The whole town came. There were flowers. The military band played. You cried for hours." His mother stared at him as if he had invented the story. "None of that happened." Lily quietly opened the family photo album. The funeral photographs were gone. Not torn out. Not damaged. They had never existed. Later that afternoon, Ethan visited City Hospital. He expected to find confused patients. Instead, he found confused doctors. One elderly woman insisted she had never been married. Her husband of 53 years sat beside her holding their wedding ring. She recognized him. She loved him. But she remembered nothing about the day they married. A university professor had forgotten the day he received his Nobel Prize. A firefighter no longer remembered rescuing dozens of children from a burning school. Entire days. Gone. Perfectly erased. Mass hysteria, one doctor suggested. Collective memory failure, said another. Ethan wasn't convinced. Something connected every victim. He just couldn't see what. That evening he visited the city archives. If memories were disappearing, perhaps history was changing too. Hours passed as he searched newspapers dating back decades. Everything matched. Until he noticed a tiny inconsistency. A newspaper from 12 years earlier contained a group photograph from the annual Harvest Festival. People smiled beneath strings of lanterns. Except, there was one man, standing in the background, watching. He wore a long gray coat. A black hat shadowed his face. No one else seemed to notice him. Ethan flipped through another year's newspaper. There he was again. Same coat. Same posture. Same unreadable expression. Different year. Different event. He never aged. The librarian noticed Ethan staring. "You've seen him." Ethan looked up. "What do you mean?" The elderly librarian slowly closed the book in front of him. "When I started working here 40 years ago, I saw that same man." Ethan's pulse quickened. "Who is he?" She hesitated. "No one knows. He appears in photographs that shouldn't contain him. People notice him, Only after something impossible happens. What impossible thing? She looked directly into Ethan's eyes. A yesterday disappears. The lights flickered. The clock on the wall stopped ticking. Every computer inside the archive shut down at the exact same moment. Silence filled the room. Then, footsteps. Slow. Measured. Echoing across the wooden floor. Tap, tap, tap. Ethan turned. A man in a gray coat walked between the bookshelves. Exactly like the photographs. Tall. Calm. Expressionless. He carried an antique silver pocket watch attached to a long chain. Without looking at anyone, he opened it. The watch contained no numbers. Instead, tiny moving photographs rotated where the clock hands should have been. Each photograph showed people laughing, celebrating, living moments from their past. The stranger gently touched one image. It dissolved into silver dust. Somewhere across the city, someone screamed. The man quietly closed the watch, turned, and walked away. Wait! Ethan chased him through endless rows of books. The stranger never hurried, never looked behind, yet somehow remained just beyond reach. They burst outside into heavy rain. The city streets were strangely empty. The man crossed the road. Ethan followed. A truck suddenly sped between them. Its horn blasted loudly. For only 2 seconds, the stranger vanished from sight. When the truck passed, he was gone. No footprints, no sound, nothing, except a silver pocket watch lying on the wet pavement. Ethan picked it up. The metal felt strangely warm. As soon as his fingers touched it, voices flooded his mind. Children laughing, wedding music, birthday songs, graduation speeches, thousands of forgotten memories, all speaking at once. He dropped the watch onto the pavement. The voices stopped instantly. His breathing became heavy. What was that thing? Back home, Ethan placed the watch inside a locked drawer. He barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he dreamed of people walking backward through time. Each step erased another yesterday. Each smile faded before reaching someone's face. At exactly 3:33 a.m., the old clock tower outside his apartment rang once. Only once. Then silence. Morning arrived. Ethan reached for his phone. 37 missed calls. Every message read the same. Where have you been? He frowned. He called Lily. She answered immediately. Ethan? Finally. What do you mean? You disappeared yesterday. He laughed. I talked to you yesterday. No. You've been missing for 2 days. His smile faded. Stop joking. I'm not. His stomach tightened. He rushed outside. The man who borrowed yesterday Part 2. The collector of yesterday. The stranger's final words echoed in Ethan's mind for days. They've begun borrowing yours. No matter how hard he tried to convince himself it had been a hallucination, the evidence refused to disappear. His birthday was still missing. Friends remembered meeting him years later than they actually had. Even his apartment lease had changed. According to the landlord, Ethan had moved in 1 year after he truly had. Someone wasn't simply erasing memories. Reality itself was being rewritten. Determined to uncover the truth, Ethan returned to the city archives. The elderly librarian, Mrs. Eleanor Graves, was already waiting. I knew you'd come back, she said. You know who he is, don't you? Ethan asked. She sighed. I know what people have called him. What? The collector of yesterday. She unlocked an ancient wooden cabinet hidden behind a bookshelf. Inside lay journals, faded maps, and newspapers dating back hundreds of years. One portrait caught Ethan's attention immediately. A painting from 1689. Standing behind a noble family was the same man, gray coat, black hat, unchanged. Another painting from 1814. There he was again. A photograph from 1903. The same face, not a wrinkle older. That's impossible, Ethan whispered. Mrs. Graves nodded. For over 300 years, he has appeared whenever a day disappears. Ethan spent hours studying every document. Each account described the same pattern. A forgotten birthday, a vanished wedding, a missing celebration. Always, exactly one complete day, never two, never half. Entire yesterdays vanished as though they had never existed. But one sentence appeared repeatedly in the journals. Nothing truly disappears. It is merely collected. Collected where? That evening, Ethan examined the silver pocket watch again. This time he wore thick leather gloves. The watch clicked open on its own. Instead of photographs, tiny landscapes now spun beneath the crystal. A beach, a birthday party, a snowy mountain, a wedding dance. Each scene repeated endlessly, as if trapped inside the watch forever. Then he noticed something engraved beneath the glass. Property of yesterday. Yesterday. It wasn't a word. It was a place. The next morning, Ethan searched every historical record mentioning yesterday. Nothing. No country. No town. No myth. Until he found an unpublished journal written by explorer Jonathan Mercer in 1847. One passage had been underlined. Yesterday cannot be found on any map because it exists beside every map. It is built from days the world has forgotten. Ethan's heartbeat quickened. That night strange things began happening. At exactly midnight, the clocks across Ashbourne stopped. Birds froze in mid-flight. Rain hung motionless in the air. The entire city stood perfectly still. Only Ethan could move. Footsteps echoed behind him. The collector calmly walked through the frozen street. "You've been asking dangerous questions," he said. Ethan turned. "Who are you?" The stranger smiled faintly. "My name has been forgotten." "Then who were you?" "I was someone who lost the happiest day of his life." Silence filled the motionless city. "It happened centuries ago. I searched everywhere to reclaim it." "I never did. So I began collecting every perfect yesterday I could find." Ethan stared. "You stole them." "I preserved them. They would have faded anyway." "You erased people's lives." "I saved them from oblivion." The collector looked toward the frozen sky. "People believe memories die. They don't. They become homeless. I gave them somewhere to live." "You mean yesterday?" The collector nodded. "A world built entirely from stolen days." Ethan struggled to understand. "You created another reality?" "No. It created itself. Every forgotten day needed somewhere to exist. I merely became its caretaker." The silver watch floated from Ethan's pocket into the collector's hand. "I've been searching for this." "You dropped it." "I left it." Ethan frowned. "You wanted me to find it?" "I wanted someone worthy enough to ask why." The collector opened the watch. Instead of tiny photographs, a doorway appeared inside its face. Beyond it, an endless golden city shimmered beneath a sky that never changed. Children laughed in distant streets. Wedding bells rang forever. Families embraced again and again. Every joyful yesterday repeated endlessly. It looked beautiful, perfect, and deeply unsettling. "That's yesterday?" "Only a small corner." "How big is it?" The collector answered quietly. "As large as every forgotten day humanity has ever lost." Ethan felt cold. "Thousands of years." millions of stolen memories, an entire world hidden beyond time. But why keep collecting? The stranger's expression darkened. Because yesterday is dying. What? The world remembers less each generation. Photographs replace memories. People rush through life. They forget too easily. The city is starving. What happens if yesterday disappears? The collector closed the watch. The past dies forever. For the first time, Ethan almost pitied him. Perhaps he wasn't evil. Perhaps he had simply spent centuries refusing to let go. The clock suddenly started ticking again. Rain continued falling. Cars moved. People resumed walking as if nothing had happened. The collector vanished. Over the following week, Ethan searched everywhere. Old churches, abandoned train stations, underground tunnels. He found strange symbols carved into forgotten buildings. Each symbol matched the engraving inside the watch. They formed a map. Every mark pointed toward one place. The abandoned Ashbourne Central Railway Station, closed since 1972. Late that night, Ethan forced open its rusted gates. Dust covered everything. Broken clocks lined the walls. Every clock displayed a different time, except one. Platform 9. Its clock read exactly 11:59. It suddenly ticked. Once, twice, then stopped. The silver watch inside Ethan's pocket began vibrating violently. The station lights flickered. Cold wind rushed through the empty platforms. Voices whispered around him. Not frightening voices. Happy ones. Birthday songs. Wedding cheers. Children laughing. Thousands of forgotten yesterdays calling his name. Ethan. 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 A massive antique train slowly emerged from complete darkness. It made no sound. Its windows glowed with warm golden light. Above the engine were 4 words. The Man Who Borrowed Yesterday Part 3. The City of Lost Days. The golden gates of yesterday closed behind Ethan with a sound like the turning of an ancient clock. Silence followed. Not an empty silence, but one filled with echoes. Children laughed somewhere beyond the streets. Wedding bells chimed in the distance. A birthday song drifted through the air, blending with applause from an unseen crowd. Every sound belonged to a memory. Every heartbeat belonged to a day the world had forgotten. Ethan stood speechless. The city stretched farther than the eye could see. Buildings were made of shimmering glass that reflected scenes instead of faces. Streets glowed like rivers of golden light. Above the rooftops floated thousands of tiny clocks, none of them showing the same time. The sky never changed. It was forever painted with the warm colors of late afternoon, as if sunset had decided to stay forever. The collector waited patiently beside him. "Welcome," he said softly, "to the city of lost days." As they walked through the streets, Ethan noticed something impossible. The people weren't ghosts. They laughed. They talked. They danced. A little girl chased butterflies through a park while her parents smiled from a nearby bench. A bride walked down an aisle covered with white roses. A group of friends celebrated graduation, throwing their caps into the air again. And again. And again. The same joyful moment repeated endlessly. "Why do they keep doing the same thing?" Ethan asked. The collector looked at the celebrating students. "Because this is the only day they have." Ethan frowned. "They don't live here? They exist here." The collector touched a nearby wall. Its surface rippled like water, revealing an elderly woman blowing out birthday candles. "Each person you see belongs to a single stolen yesterday. They cannot grow older. They cannot move to tomorrow. They cannot return to the past. They relive their final remembered day forever." Ethan felt a chill. This isn't paradise. The collector remained silent. A young boy suddenly ran toward Ethan. He couldn't have been older than 10. "You can see me," the boy shouted excitedly. "Most visitors ignore us." "What do you mean?" "They only look at the memories." The boy smiled brightly. "My name is Oliver." "How long have you been here?" Oliver scratched his head. "I don't know. I stopped counting after 100 birthdays." Ethan froze. "But you're still 10. Oliver nodded. "My birthday keeps happening." He pointed toward a nearby house. "My parents are inside. They've been singing Happy Birthday for centuries." Ethan looked through the window. Inside, a smiling family placed candles on the same cake. The father laughed. The mother hugged her son. The candles were blown out. The family cheered. Then, the scene reset. The candles relit themselves. The parents repeated every word. The celebration began again. Exactly the same. Over and over. Ethan stepped back in horror. "They don't know?" "No," Oliver whispered. "They think it's the first time." As they continued walking, Ethan saw countless forgotten lives. A soldier hugging his wife before leaving for war. A grandmother reading one last bedtime story. A musician performing before a cheering crowd. Every joyful yesterday preserved. Every tomorrow stolen. "You call this saving people?" Ethan demanded. "They're prisoners." "They're memories," the collector corrected. "If I released them, they would disappear forever." They arrived at the center of the city. There stood the largest building Ethan had ever seen. It resembled both a cathedral and a palace. Its walls were built entirely from glowing clocks. Above the entrance were carved the words, "The first yesterday." The collector opened the enormous doors. Inside stood a circular chamber filled with floating golden fragments. Millions of them. Each fragment showed a different happy memory. First kisses, family reunions, children taking their first steps, graduations, weddings, birthdays. Every joyful day ever stolen floated silently around the room. At the chamber center stood an enormous crystal clock. Its hands had stopped at exactly 6:14. The collector looked at it with sadness. "This is why I collect." Ethan stared at the frozen clock. "What is it?" The stranger closed his eyes. 600 years ago, I loved someone. Her name was Amelia." The crystal responded, projecting glowing images into the air. A young woman laughed beneath blooming cherry trees. The collector appeared beside her, but he looked young, alive, human. "We promised to meet at sunset. That day would have been our wedding." His voice trembled. "But she never arrived." A terrible plague swept through the city before sunset. Thousands died, including Amelia. "The happiest day of my life never happened." Silence filled the chamber. "So you started stealing everyone else's?" The collector nodded slowly. "I believed that if I gathered enough perfect days, I could build one so beautiful, so complete, it would restore the day I lost." Ethan's expression hardened. "You've destroyed millions of lives chasing one impossible dream. I gave forgotten happiness a home. You trapped it. I preserved it. You stole it." The collector's calm expression finally cracked. "You cannot imagine 600 years of regret. I've tried to forget. I couldn't. So I made a place where happiness could never die." Suddenly, the crystal clock began shaking. Tiny cracks spread across its surface. The golden fragments flickered. The collector's face turned pale. "No, not now." "What happened?" "The city is becoming unstable." "Why?" The collector looked directly at Ethan. "Because you came here." The crystal projected another vision. Except this time, Ethan recognized it. His 7th birthday. His father lifted him onto his shoulders. His mother laughed while Lily handed him a homemade birthday card. It was one of the happiest days of his childhood. Ethan smiled. I remember this. The memory suddenly glitched. His father's face blurred. The birthday cake vanished. The laughter faded. Then, the entire memory shattered into golden dust. What happened? Ethan shouted. The collector stared in horror. It shouldn't be happening. More memories appeared. Ethan learning to ride a bicycle. Gone. The man who borrowed yesterday Part 4. The perfect day. The city of lost days was dying. Golden streets cracked like shattered glass. Towers built from forgotten birthdays collapsed into clouds of glowing dust. Wedding bells rang wildly before fading into silence. People who had laughed only moments ago simply vanished. Oliver grabbed Ethan's hand. They're disappearing. Across the city, memories dissolved into streams of golden light, rising toward the darkening sky. The collector stood frozen before the cracked crystal clock. His centuries of work was collapsing before his eyes. No, he whispered. I was so close. The enormous crystal clock split with a deafening crack. Instead of falling apart, it opened. Thousands of floating memories rushed toward its center like stars pulled into a black hole. Birthday parties, first kisses, graduations, family reunions. Every joyful yesterday the collector had ever stolen was being absorbed into the clock. What is happening? Ethan shouted. The collector slowly smiled. It's choosing. Choosing what? The perfect day. The crystal erupted with blinding light. The entire city disappeared. When Ethan opened his eyes, he stood in the middle of a beautiful countryside. Cherry blossoms floated through the warm breeze. Children laughed nearby. A river sparkled beneath the afternoon sun. Everything felt alive, more alive than reality itself. Oliver stared in amazement. It stopped repeating. The collector stepped forward. You are standing inside the day I have spent 6 centuries creating. The perfect day. Every beautiful memory from history had become one single moment. Children who had never met played together. Long-lost families embraced. Old enemies forgave each other. Every sunset ever admired painted the sky at once. Every wedding song blended into one beautiful melody. It felt impossible. It felt perfect. For one brief moment, even Ethan forgot why he had come. Then he noticed something strange. None of the people blinked. None breathed. None spoke unless the memory required it. A father hugged his daughter. 5 seconds later, the embrace repeated. Exactly. A musician smiled. The applause returned. Again and again. The perfection wasn't alive. It was trapped. You built a prison, Ethan said quietly. The collector looked hurt. I built eternity. Suddenly the sky trembled. The warm sunlight flickered. Clouds turned into spinning clock gears. The ground vibrated beneath Ethan's feet. Far away, buildings from Ashbourne appeared in the sky. Cars floated through clouds. People walked upside down across invisible streets. Reality itself was breaking apart. The worlds are colliding, Oliver whispered. The collector nodded calmly. It has begun. Ethan stared. What have you done? When the perfect day is complete, yesterday and today become one. No one will ever lose another happy memory. The collector smiled peacefully. The entire world will live inside yesterday. Ethan finally understood. Yesterday wasn't replacing memories. It was replacing reality. Every living person would become trapped inside one endless perfect day. No pain, no aging, no tomorrow. Forever. You'll destroy the future. The collector shook his head. I'll end suffering. You'll end life. The sky cracked open. Across the horizon, Ethan saw pieces of the real world falling into yesterday. Schools, hospitals, cities. Entire neighborhoods drifted through the air before landing gently inside the golden landscape. Back in Ashbourne, people froze mid-step. Some became children again. Others instantly grew old. Time flowed differently for everyone. Clocks spun wildly. The world was collapsing. Oliver looked toward Ethan. My parents. They're in one of those memories. If yesterday disappears, so do they. The collector quietly reached into his coat. He removed the silver pocket watch. I've carried this for 600 years. He placed it into Ethan's hands. You decide. What? The watch controls the crystal clock. You can restore every stolen yesterday. Ethan looked hopeful. But the collector's voice broke. Doing so will erase yesterday forever. Oliver's face turned pale. The city? Gone. My parents? They will finally rest. Ethan felt his hands shaking. Millions of forgotten memories. Millions of trapped souls. One choice. One future. Before he could answer, a familiar voice echoed behind him. Ethan. He turned. His father stood beneath a cherry tree, exactly as Ethan remembered him. Smiling. Alive. Dad. Tears filled Ethan's eyes. His father hugged him warmly. I'm proud of you. Ethan closed his eyes. For the first time since childhood, he felt whole. Then his father whispered something strange. This isn't me. Ethan stepped back. What? His father's smile faded. I'm only what you remember. If you stay, you'll forget the real world. His father's body began turning into golden dust. You still have tomorrow. We never did. Then he disappeared. The collector lowered his head. I didn't know they could become aware. They're waking up. Suddenly, Oliver walked toward the crystal clock. What are you doing? Ethan shouted. Oliver smiled sadly. I lied. The collector looked shocked. No. Oliver nodded. I remember everything. The little boy's appearance began changing. He grew taller, older. Within seconds he became a man in his 40s. Then older still. His body shimmered between every age he had ever been. I was your first visitor. He looked directly at the collector. 400 years ago. The collector's eyes widened. Jonathan Mercer. The explorer from the journal. You never left yesterday, Ethan whispered. Jonathan smiled sadly. I couldn't. I chose perfection. I forgot what tomorrow felt like. Jonathan suddenly grabbed the crystal clock. I won't let either of you destroy this place. Golden energy exploded across the city. The crystal clock shattered into hundreds of glowing fragments. The silver watch cracked in Ethan's hands. The collector screamed. For the first time in 6 centuries, he cried. A wave of golden light surged across both worlds. Ashbourne and yesterday collided. Buildings merged with memories. Real people appeared beside forgotten ones. Children played with grandparents who had died decades earlier. Wedding processions walked through busy highways. Schools stood inside ancient castles. The Man Who Borrowed Yesterday Part 5. Tomorrow remembers. The sky no longer belonged to one world. Half of it glowed with the endless golden sunset of yesterday. The other half churned with dark storm clouds from the real world. Cities floated beside forgotten villages. Ancient castles stood in the middle of modern highways. Children laughed with grandparents who had died decades before, while strangers met younger versions of themselves on crowded streets. Every clock on Earth had stopped at the same exact second. Time itself had reached its limit. Ethan stood in the ruins of the crystal clock. The collector knelt beside the shattered fragments, unable to move. Jonathan Mercer, the explorer who had become trapped in yesterday centuries ago, had vanished into the chaos after breaking the crystal clock. Golden cracks spread across the ground beneath them. Each crack released thousands of forgotten memories into the air. People everywhere began screaming, not from fear, but from remembering. A woman suddenly remembered the son she had lost 20 years earlier. An old man remembered proposing to his wife beneath a snowfall. A firefighter remembered the children he had once saved. Every stolen yesterday was trying to return at once. The world could not survive the flood of memories. Then, the sky opened. A gigantic figure stepped through the tear in reality. It wasn't human. It wasn't a monster. It was made entirely of glowing clocks, broken calendars, and streams of flowing memories. Its eyes contained countless sunrises. Its voice sounded like thousands of ticking clocks speaking together. I am the keeper of tomorrow. Even the collector lowered his head. You still exist, he whispered. The keeper looked toward Ethan. For centuries, one man refused to let the past die. Its gaze shifted toward the collector. You broke the oldest law. The collector quietly nodded. I know. Ethan stepped forward. What law? The keeper answered gently. The past must be remembered, but never possessed. The collector slowly stood. His gray coat fluttered in the golden wind. I never wanted power. I only wanted one more day. The keeper remained silent. The collector finally looked directly at Ethan. There is something I never told you. He removed a faded photograph from inside his coat. It showed him and Amelia beneath blooming cherry trees. But Ethan noticed something strange. A tiny child stood between them. A son? Ethan asked. The collector smiled through tears. Our daughter. Her name was Rose. Ethan's eyes widened. You never mentioned her. I couldn't. The collector's voice trembled. She died the same day as Amelia. My wife. My daughter. My tomorrow. All vanished before it could begin. So I spent 600 years trying to rebuild the only future I would never have. For the first time, Ethan saw not a villain, but a father who had never stopped grieving. The keeper spoke once more. Grief is meant to become memory, not prison. The collector closed his eyes. I know. The keeper raised one enormous hand. The broken crystal clock floated into the air. Its fragments slowly began joining together. Only one piece remained missing. The silver pocket watch, still clutched tightly in Ethan's hand. The final choice belongs to you, said the keeper. If the last fragment returns, every stolen yesterday will be restored. Yesterday will disappear. The world will remember everything. Ethan looked toward the collector. And him? The keeper answered softly. He will finally reach tomorrow. The collector smiled peacefully. I've been waiting 6 centuries. Ethan lifted the silver watch toward the crystal clock. Suddenly, the watch opened by itself. Inside appeared one final memory. His 7th birthday. His father lifted him onto his shoulders while his mother laughed beside them. It was Ethan's happiest day. The only memory untouched by yesterday. The keeper looked at him sadly. The crystal clock needs one final yesterday. It cannot be empty. If you restore the world, you must give it one memory of equal happiness. My own. The keeper nodded. You alone can choose. Ethan stared at the memory. His father's laughter. His mother's smile. Lily handing him a birthday gift she had wrapped herself. If he sacrificed it, he would never remember his father's voice again. Never remember that perfect day. Never remember the happiest moment of his childhood. The collector quietly stepped beside him. I'm sorry. For everything. Ethan smiled faintly. You spent centuries trying to keep one happy day. He looked at the memory one final time. Maybe happiness isn't meant to stay. It's meant to be shared. With trembling hands, he placed his birthday memory inside the crystal clock. The watch dissolved into golden light. The crystal clock completed itself. It rang. Once. The sound echoed across every corner of existence. Golden light exploded through yesterday. The city smiled one last time. Oliver waved goodbye before fading peacefully into light. Families embraced for the final time. Wedding bells rang once. Children laughed once. Every forgotten yesterday gently returned to the people who had lost it. No fear, no pain, only remembrance. Yesterday slowly dissolved like morning mist beneath sunrise. Across Earth, people stopped walking, then smiled. Every forgotten birthday returned. Every missing anniversary. Every vanished farewell. The world remembered everything. Photographs changed. History healed. Time began moving forward once again. The endless sunset disappeared. Tomorrow finally arrived. The collector looked toward the sky. For the first time in 600 years, he saw a sunrise. Tears rolled down his face. I almost forgot. It's beautiful. A warm breeze carried distant laughter. Amelia appeared beneath the cherry blossoms, holding little Rose's hand. They smiled at him. No words were needed. The collector walked toward them. His gray coat dissolved into golden light. Then, he was gone. At peace. Weeks later, Ashbourne returned to normal. News reports called the strange event the day time broke. Scientists never found an explanation. People simply accepted that they had all remembered something precious. Only Ethan knew the truth. One afternoon Lily found an old family photograph. Remember this birthday? She asked. Ethan looked carefully. He smiled politely. It looks wonderful.